Housemarque showed with Returnal just how different and groundbreaking an experience it could deliver to the gaming world, but now the studio is preparing to raise the bar much higher with Saros. At first glance, this game might look like a new sci-fi action title carrying the spirit of Returnal. However, when we look at all the details that have been shared, we can clearly see that Saros will offer a much more story-driven, darker, more emotional, and at the same time more advanced roguelite structure. In particular, elements like the mysterious planet called Carcosa, the constantly repeating eclipse cycle, Arjun Devraj's personal quest, and the fact that the character grows stronger after every death already make it feel like this game could be one of PlayStation's most ambitious projects of 2026, not just visually, but also in terms of gameplay and atmosphere. We'll be taking a closer look at all the game's details step by step, so before we start the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Let's begin. One of the most striking aspects of Saros is undoubtedly its spiritual connection to Returnal, because this game is not a direct sequel, but it takes the gameplay philosophy Housemarque built before and pushes it to a much bigger and more refined level. In Returnal, there was a structure where a character trying to survive on an alien planet was trapped inside cycles. Saros keeps that core idea and rebuilds it with a more accessible, more strategic, and more long-term progression system that turns Saros from being just a Returnal-like game into a standalone experience with its own identity and the potential to appeal to a much wider audience. At the center of the game is Arjun Devraj, described as a Soltari enforcer, and the character is brought to life by Rahul Kohli. Even this choice alone shows how much importance is being placed on the game's cinematic side. On the surface, Arjun may seem like someone investigating a lost colony, but the dialogue and hologram scenes that have been shared suggest that this journey is actually deeply personal, especially lines like "I will find you" make it feel as if the mission on Carcosa is not only military or exploration focused, but that an emotional bond has also been placed at the center of the story that pushes Saros beyond being just a sci-fi action game driven by combat and brings it closer to an emotional character story. Carcosa already looks like one of the game's most unforgettable elements. Described as a shape-shifting planet, this world seems to form the backbone of the game not only visually, but narratively as well. The dark skies, the orange-tinted eclipse light, black obelisks, giant creatures, and the ruins of abandoned civilizations turn Saros' atmosphere into something much closer to cosmic horror than an ordinary space adventure. The most important point here is that the world does not feel like just a backdrop. Carcosa feels like an active threat, as if it is alive, playing with the character's mind and revealing a new face of itself with every cycle. The eclipse theme also seems to be one of the game's strongest symbols. The fact that the name Saros in the real world refers to an astronomical cycle connected to eclipses shows that Housemarque is not using the visuals in this game purely for aesthetic purposes. Here, the eclipse is not just an impressive event in the sky. It also works as a narrative device representing madness, recurring catastrophe, and the inescapable loop. Arjun's line, "Whenever the sun dies, madness reigns, then everything begins again," is already the clearest proof of that. In other words, in the universe of Saros, time, death, and sanity are all tightly bound together. On the gameplay side, Saros' biggest difference seems to be its permanent progression system. In many roguelite games, when you fail, most things reset and you have to start over. But in Saros, every death makes Arjun even stronger. That idea might sound like a small detail, but it is actually a huge design decision that changes the entire rhythm of the gameplay, because this system both gives the player motivation to keep trying again and again, and it turns every failure from a loss into a natural part of progress. That makes it feel like Saros could offer a more inviting experience, especially for players who found Returnal too harsh or too punishing. One of the clearest examples of this is the mechanic called Second Chance. This system, which gives the player an opportunity to get back up after the first death, is not just a survival tool. It is also one of the core pillars reflecting the game's philosophy, because here Housemarque is clearly saying this to the player. In this world, death is not the end, but the beginning of transformation. Every failure creates new knowledge, new strength, and a new strategy. That is exactly why the loop structure in Saros feels designed not just to create a sense of repetition, but for both the character and the player to evolve together. The combat suit and abilities Arjun uses also make the action side of the game extremely strong. The fact that he can use melee combat, jump high, and has different defensive systems shows that Housemarque has not abandoned fast-paced combat. So even if Saros is moving toward a more story-driven structure, at its core, it still seems like it will be an experience built on reflexes, positioning, and fluid combat. That makes it very clear that the game will not be just an atmospheric exploration game, but on the contrary, a high-tempo and intense action experience. Saros also looks quite ambitious when it comes to weapon variety. The game will feature both weapons belonging to Soltari human technology and alien weapons unique to Carcosa. Being able to choose a different loadout at the start of every cycle could seriously increase the game's replayability, because this system allows the player to adopt a different combat style in every attempt. In one run, you might choose a more aggressive, close-range build, while in another, it may be possible to adopt a defense and range-focused playstyle. That shows Saros could stand out not only because of enemy variety, but also because of the tactical freedom it offers the player. The Soltari shield ability that stood out in the gameplay footage shown is also very important, because this shield is presented not just as a defensive tool, but as an active mechanic that can absorb projectiles and reverse the rhythm of combat. Systems like this make it seem as if the philosophy at the core of Housemarque games, keep moving constantly and turn offense into defense, will continue in Saros as well. In other words, instead of hiding passively and waiting, the player is encouraged to defend at the right moment and then clear the field with a powerful counterattack. That makes the game's fast-paced and aggressive structure even more apparent. On top of that, the balance between risk and reward seems like it will be very important in Saros, because it is said that some powerful abilities are tied to Eclipse energy, and that overusing this power can corrupt Arjun and even bring various debuffs to him. This is exactly where the game stops being a standard action title and becomes something much more strategic, because you may have great power in your hands, but you have to know when and how much to use it. Otherwise, while gaining an advantage in the short term, you may make your character more fragile in the long term. If this system is handled with real depth, Saros' combat mechanics could become layered and unforgettable. The hologram recordings and clues about the past that we will encounter in the game's story are also quite exciting, especially the female figure Arjun reacts to. Makes it seem likely that the Lost Colony incident will connect to a much more personal and dramatic point. Thanks to these kinds of narrative fragments, the player starts asking not only, what happened, but also more emotional questions like, who is Arjun searching for here? What is he trying to make up for? And why is he so determined? If Housemarque paces this mystery well, Saros could pull players in not just with its gameplay, but also with a narrative structure driven by curiosity. The creature designs seen in Saros' trailers are also very impressive. Giant multi-armed beings, godlike yet terrifying figures, dragon-like flying creatures, and enemy silhouettes spread across dark landscapes strongly bring out the game's cosmic horror side. That sets Saros apart from classic space-themed action games, because here, the threat is not only technological or physical, it also comes from the unknown, from ancient powers, and from a reality that is difficult to understand. That adds a heavier, more mysterious, and more disturbing atmosphere to the game. Visually, Saros truly looks like a candidate to be a next-gen showcase title. The orange eclipse light contrasted against its dark color palette, the massive structures, the foggy horizon line, and the alien world design all give the impression of a production that uses the technical power of the PlayStation 5 to the fullest. Especially with PS5 Pro enhancements, the game is expected to deliver an even more impressive visual experience. If Housemarque combines the particle effects, lighting, and fluid combat feel of Returnal with larger-scale environmental design here, Saros could become one of the most striking visual experiences of 2026. One of the most important questions here is this: how different can Saros really be from Returnal? Because from the outside, we are again seeing a third-person camera, again a loop structure, again science fiction, and again fast combat. But when we go into the details, we can understand that Housemarque wants to create the real difference through the progression system, character building, and the risk-reward structure. In other words, Saros' goal does not seem to be making the same thing as Returnal. It seems to be redefining that formula with a more character-focused, more systematic, and more permanent progression logic. That is why creating a new IP actually seems like a logical decision. Arjun's physical mobility also strengthens this distinction. Systems like jumping higher, passing over smaller enemies, creating energy barriers, and building with different passive effects could give the player much more control. That makes it feel like Saros will not be just a reflex-based game, but also an experience of shaping the character according to the style you want. If this structure is truly deepened, it may be possible for everyone to play Arjun in a different way. That kind of variety would create a major advantage both for content creators and for players who want to stay committed to the game for a long time. Rahul Kohli's presence is also a major plus for the game's marketing side, because players are no longer connecting only to mechanics, but also to strong performances and memorable main characters. Kohli's tone of voice, facial expressions, and the weight he carries in the trailers make Arjun feel like something more than a standard action hero. His tired, angry, yet determined state fits the tone of the game very well. If that same strength carries over into the full game, Saros's narrative side could feel much more effective, and players may connect emotionally to Arjun's journey much more easily. On the release date side, the fact that the game has been moved to the 30th of April 2026 may seem like bad news, but it could lead to positive results in the long run. The slight delay from the original March 2026 window may point to an additional polishing period. Especially in a game like this, which demands atmosphere, gameplay precision, and technical performance. A delay of a few weeks or a month is often the right move for quality. And considering the trust Housemarque built after Returnal, it seems more reasonable to assume that the studio is trying to make the game as good as possible, rather than rushing it out unfinished. The fact that the game has so far only been announced for PS5 and PS5 Pro also makes Saros a very important exclusive for the PlayStation side. We know Sony has brought some of its major games to PC later on in recent years, but for Saros, the current picture suggests that, at least around launch, this will be a full PlayStation experience. That increases the possibility of the game feeling even more impressive in terms of DualSense features, 3D audio usage, and optimizations tailored specifically to the console hardware. In short, Sony is getting ready to put a new major sci-fi weapon on the field to strengthen its hand in 2026. Pre-order details and moves like early access included with the deluxe edition also show that the game is already building serious anticipation. But I think what really makes Saros interesting is not the marketing materials. It is the sense of transformation the game promises inside. Because this title is not just showing us a new list of enemies, new weapons, or a new planet. At the same time, it is proposing a system that turns death into progress, offers power at a cost, and changes the player a little more with every cycle. Today, many games try to look powerful, but only a few truly promise a different feeling. And Saros' greatest strength lies exactly there. Looking at the overall picture, Saros more than deserves to be considered one of the most intriguing sci-fi action games of 2026. This game, which takes the legacy of Returnal fully behind it and tries to turn it into something more emotional, more systematic, and larger in scale, could become the biggest work of Housemarque's career if executed the right way. Even what we have seen so far tells us that this is not an ordinary sequel idea, but a much more deliberate and ambitious evolution project. If the game can keep curiosity alive on the narrative side, while also delivering the depth it promises in gameplay, Saros could turn into one of PlayStation's most special new-gen franchises. And to be completely honest, Saros right now does not look like just a game that looks beautiful. It also feels like a project carrying very powerful ideas behind it. We are talking about a structure where death does not weaken you but develops you, where every cycle unlocks new secrets, where cosmic horror merges with sci-fi action, and where the main character's personal story is placed right at the center of this chaos. That is why seeing Saros only as the new version of Returnal would be a huge mistake. If this game really turns out as expected, it could become one of the most talked about PlayStation games of 2026. What do you think about this game? Do you think Saros can surpass Returnal, or will it remain in the shadow of Housemarque's previous game? Be sure to write your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.